All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Dr. Heather Holt. Heather, how's it going?
Good. Thank you, Michael.
No, thank you so much for coming along. Now, if you don't mind me asking, where are you located?
We are in Long Prairie, Minnesota.
Okay, so would you say that's rural?
Yeah, we are central Minnesota. If we had the state, go right in the middle, and that's where Long Prairie is. It's about 3,000 people here, and we have a very diverse population here. It's not
Okay.
just what you would think of a bunch of farmers. We got the farmers, we have Amish populations, actually a pretty large Hispanic population.
Oh, really? Wow, interesting. So then, can you walk us through your journey from where you started in dentistry to where you are today? What key moments or decisions helped shape the direction of your practice?
Yeah. Growing up, it was definitely not, I'm going to be a dentist. I didn't have that aha moment when I was in school. I went to a college near here, so still in Minnesota, and I wanted to go for art and science. It's all I knew. I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. And in your sophomore year at St. Ben's, you have to decide a major. And I thought about it quite a bit, actually, of trying to figure out what am I going to do, right? You're thinking like, I'm in school, I have all this debt. And I got an email that said pre-dental club was having this meeting. And at the bottom of this email, it said free pizza. So that's, I'm not even kidding. And I was trying to figure it out. And
Uh,
actually, I prayed a bunch. I was like, I've got to have some direction. I like the science, but I don't want to have a biology major where I'm doing research in a big town. I want to go back to my hometown, or at least
mm,
a smaller town. So Long Prairie here is also where I grew up. And I went to that meeting. We sat in a circle and they talked about, why do you want to be a dentist? Some people talked about helping people. They always knew maybe their parent was a dentist. And then somebody said the art of dentistry. And that
yeah.
was it. That was it. I was like, I never thought about teeth, art, detail, and that never came together. It was one of those like, that's why I'm here, besides the free pizza, which was delicious. So I
That's funny.
actually, on the way home, I called my parents. I said, I know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And it was actually my dad. And he's like, what is it? I'm like, a dentist. Dad, can you see me as a dentist? And he actually said, no. I was like, Dad, what did you think I was going to be? He said, an agronomist. So I grew up on kind of like a hobby farm. So my dad, his
Mm.
passion is row crop, corn and soybeans. So he said, agronomist, because I can talk the chemistry of the soil and everything, the nitrogen, the phosphorus. I can talk with him. So he just thought I had that passion. That was the science behind it. But my parents really were my biggest supporters throughout this. And it's been awesome. But that was always the funny kind of story looking back of how I got here. Pizza and the
Yeah,
industry is how I got here.
that's
So I
so.
went to school and to college at University of Minnesota. So again, I not leaving Minnesota apparently.
Mhm.
And I got married right after my undergrad. So I went through dental school. And after that, I kind of knew we come back to this area. My husband is also from Long Prairie. We were high school sweethearts. The whole story. Yeah. I met him when I was in kindergarten, actually. Uh, and
Nice.
that's our story. So we ended up having the journey here. Now, my journey to ownership, I never thought I would start my own clinic. There's another clinic in town who was the dentist that it was only one dental office. It was my mentor. And really didn't have a plan B. I was like, I'm going to go join the practice. And the dentist during that time, they had retired and needed to. I mean, I think my mentor retired at like 70, 71. He was trying to find somebody to take over. In rural Minnesota,
Mhm.
that's the challenge. And the new owner was just really successful businessman, but he wasn't looking for a partner. And I said, well, I really don't want to be an associate. I really want to own. So I worked for associateships outside of Long Prairie and very helpful. I learned a lot. At my second associateship, I remember having an interview with the dentist and I was telling her about my goals and I want to be an owner. I had a kid at the time, like I want a family. And she's like, are you going to move? This was in Avon, Minnesota. So about a 45-minute drive from Long Prairie where I was looking to be a potential partner in future there. And she's like, well, are you going to move to Avon? I said, no, I'm going to stay in Long Prairie. That's my home. That's my family. And she said, what about kids and school? And you're going to want to be part of those events. I'm like, well, man, this isn't going well. And she actually said, you need to start your own clinic. In this interview, she's telling me I need to start my own clinic in Long Prairie. And I'm like, oh, this one real backwards of what I
Yeah,
thought it was going to be.
yeah.
And she said, you're going to be successful and I'm going to help you. And I'm like, blown away. And ironically, she needed an associate. Well, she was waiting for one to come in after a GPR situation. So she had about 9 months where she could hire me as working part time for her as I got my startup going. And I came home from this interview. And I told my husband, we're going to start a clinic. And he's like, about time. I've been telling you this for how long? And I'm like, what is it that she was the one
Yeah.
that made you go, that's it? And I think I needed to hear it from another mom, another woman, that I could do it and I wasn't going to fail. It was going to be okay. Her kids were already graduated. She was at the end of her career. That was like what I needed to hear. It's just somebody else that was doing exactly what I wanted, where I wanted my life to be, and saying, you can do it. And that was it. We haven't looked back since then. But that was the start of how I said, all right, let's make Prairie Family Dental.
Interesting. Okay. So then was there a possibility to take over her practice or no? Because she was at the end of her career?
Yeah. So she was taking on an associate. And so I think actually that's kind of their plan. But really from my conversation, I think she really showed me that if I really want to stay with Long Prairie, where my home is, my family, then I need to be here. If the kids have a thing at school or sports, she's like, you're going to want to be there. You don't want to drive 45 minutes to do these things. She said, you want to be able to leave your practice, go do something with them at lunch or whatever it is, and come back. She was just so insightful of, she could tell I wanted to be a mom and have the family, but how do we make that blend? And she just knew that she had that foresight of just saying, Avon's not it. The 45-minute drive isn't going to be it. You need it. Long Prairie needs it.
Interesting. Okay. So then we rewind a little bit. You never thought you would own your own clinic. You were mentioning something about a mentor, and then he was at the end of his career too. Who was the mentor?
His name is Dr. Nye, Dr. John Nye. So he was just my dentist growing up. He was the only dentist I ever had. He also came to Long Prairie and he started his clinic here. And so there was other dentists that also work in that dental clinic when he was coming around. And when he retired, you can imagine a lot of people are like, especially around here, it's not like a lot of other options for dentists. A lot of people, it was kind of hard to find a new dentist. So when we were starting our clinic, it was this peak moment of people hadn't been to the dentist because they're just scared to see a new dentist is what it felt like. Of, a lot of new patients we had was, well, my dentist retired and I had to be like, yeah, like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
So we were catching up on a lot of people that were just scared of that new dentist, the new leap. So there was definitely a need in rural Minnesota. I assume like a lot of places in rural areas, there's no competition. So now there's 2 dental offices, ours and the other dental office in town. And I would say competition is almost non-existent because there's too many people. We actually need more dentists. We need more.
We need more to come in.
Which is great. It is right.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So then you also worked for an associateship, more than one, right?
Yes.
What were some of the things that you learned in your associateship where you're like, if I ever did own my own practice, I'm taking this system? And then what were some things where you're like, I never want to do this, what you're making me do?
My first associateship, I think I learned more of the staff management. When I came on, it was a 2 dentist practice and the male dentist was retiring. So I was taking over for kind of his side of the practice. And then there's a female dentist there. So it was the 2 of us. And that was my first clinic after dental school. Again, another very busy clinic. So I kind of learned from the get-go of you're running 2 columns on your own and there's 3 hygiene columns to check. And it was like, you just got to learn speed. You got to go.
Yeah.
There's no time. Staff. When I joined, a lot of the staff had a lot of turnover. Whether it was because they maybe really liked the dentist that was there, did they not have a good relationship with the owner that was kind of already a partner? But I would say one of the things I really noticed was the complaints that staff had. They didn't feel appreciated. I remember there was like dental assistant week and I said, oh, happy like dental assistant week. Assistant looked at me and she's like, I've never been told that here. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. I don't want to overshadow my boss. I'm just going to maybe not say that again. There was this kind of stress. I could tell that there was tension. And I think everyone kind of knows what we mean when we say that of there's tension in the office, whether it's the front, the back, it's too busy. And there's like the nitpicky stuff kind of develops where when everyone's stressed, you start noticing when somebody has a moment of free time and you're like, there's that tension of they have free time. Why can't they do this? And I'm over here doing all X, Y, Z. And so I was noticing how stress affected staff's attitudes of almost better to have a little bit of leeway than to make everyone tighten and work at 110% all day long. Other things, I remember it was an older dentist. I'm sure it's all different now, but I remember when I first got there, I opened a drawer and it was like items in the drawer that weren't like peel packed. It was like the extras. And I remember just being like, oh gosh, I really hope they're not going to ask me to just pull out a mirror if I drop one out of this drawer. And so that was some changes like coming in and being like, I'm not going to ask. I want these peel packed. So if I need extras, you're not just grabbing it out of this, I don't know, drawer of things that were just
Mhm.
different when you come in as an associate for a dentist that's been there for a long time.
Interesting. I know you said you didn't want to overshadow, but like, have you ever thought maybe like, oh, maybe I can help out a little bit? Was that the case, or was it more like I'm just going to sit here, do my work, and then go home and?
So I graduated at University of Minnesota in 2019. So I'm at this new practice as a new dentist. It's also 2020. And so everything was just very different, where I felt like it was a very interesting time being a brand new dentist in the world of COVID. And in my original associateship agreement, the partnership was a possibility or was going to be talked about at some point. That was in the wording. When I was there for about 1 year, kind of taking everything that's going on, my boss had kind of approached me with a new associate agreement, which took all that out, the wording of partnership and everything. And so that's why I was like, all right, I'm gone. That's my goal again, is ownership. So if it's not an option here, I need to look somewhere else. And her reasoning when I asked, like, I thought things were going well, it was because everything about maybe the finance of the clinic weren't there. So that wasn't the time that she would probably want to sell me half the practice when everything's lower than what it should be, which that didn't really ask questions. I don't think we would have blended as like a good marriage. And you get that feel when you first start out, you just think it'll just work out. And that was one thing I think you just realize in personalities of what's a good fit. That's best
Interesting.
for me.
That's a good way to think about it. At any moment, did you feel like you didn't want to do this anymore? Instead of saying, hey, I want to go further and own my own practice, was it more on the opposite side where you're like, what did I get myself into kind of a thing? Or no, you never felt that?
I would say I've been very lucky that from that time of going to that meeting with free pizza, I've never regretted dentistry. Through all the stresses that ownership and being a dentist brings, that art every day is what keeps me going.
Gotcha. Okay. So then in those practices where you were an associate, it was about the stress, right?
Yeah.
Everybody shouldn't be working 110% and also being more organized. What were some of the things or systems where you're like, this is a unique system. This is beautiful. I want to do this in my practice whenever I have my own, if there was any.
There was in my second associateship where I was an associate for somebody that she was helping me kind of advice of just a mentor. In that second associateship, that's where I saw a lot more efficient systems because the staff had been there longer. I think what I was watching with my first clinic is there's so much turnover that there
Mhm.
was no systems. I remember a staff member even complaining about the sterilizer and they haven't been able to change like the rubber that kind of goes around this. It had been so long and lacking in those things. I'm like, oh, like there wasn't any. That's what I felt.
Mhm.
I went to my second, that's what I was observing was those systems. They had a really good approach of how to handle patients that maybe didn't pay their bills or like those structures of like, when do you start? How are we going to treat a patient that it's been 60 plus days, 90 plus days? When do we put them into collections? Like those big questions that you're asking kind of your staff to do. And I thought they just had a really good approach of it, of how to reach out and like just saying, okay, at this point, this is the letter we send. So it doesn't feel like, yeah, but this person's my friend or I know this person. We just try to be like, no, this is a blank slate. This is how we approach until we say, okay, they haven't paid for XYZ and it's been so long. Now we need to send it to collections. It felt like it was just easier for the staff to take that emotional feeling of like, well, we feel bad. Or that was a wonderful system I saw in Avon.
Gosh. So that's something you're doing right now. That
Yeah.
exact same.
So we incorporate that same idea of, okay, this is how we'd like to approach it. If it's been 60 plus days, please send this letter and with this wording. And then we're going to send a statement at this point, and we're going to give them a call at this point. And so it just seemed more uniform. The front desk has a hard job. They're getting calls from people that are in pain or upset and the good and the bad, right? And so that was one thing that I think our front desk appreciated is there was a system in place. How do you want me to handle?
Could I ask, how does that system look like exactly? Like for collections? Like let's just say, for example, they haven't paid. And it's the 60-day point now.
I want to say we don't do it until I think it's over 90. I'd have to take a look up how we send like at least 3 different letters, call at least, I think 3 different times. We try to make it as much as we understand what's happening. Even if we have somebody make payments, that's a
Mhm.
positive of like, now we got some order. If somebody does have to go to collections, we try to give every single last chance. It's also then documented. We have a binder that has it. My front desk will run it once a month.
Mhm.
of this is the steps we do.
Okay, interesting. So it's a 90-day then for you guys.
I'd have to recheck what we have. But yes, kind of you can
Mhm.
imagine just creating that system of what would you want if you were a patient? Because you don't want to have to send patients to collections, but you need to have the point where your front desk, they tried how many times and it's okay, then we need to hand that off to somebody else.
Yeah, I like that. Where the front desk feels like we've turned over every single rock. I have no idea where else to go for from this point on, right?
And they just feel like they're cold calling. Like they've
Yeah.
got other time to do other things. And I would say overall, we're doing a fabulous job. And I think luckily we don't have to send too many patients to collections. I mean, no one wants to do that.
No, yeah, great point. So we've been talking about your team a lot. How many people are on your team?
We have right now 6 employees, 6
Okay.
full-time. I guess I would be 7, and I would count my husband as probably number 8. So my husband does the kind of more the managerial side, the finances, the accounting, all those things in the back that happen as a business owner. That's what my husband does. He also, I think, because he's not a dentist, he gets to kind of look at the clinic from like the 50-foot up kind of view.
Hmm.
Or being in the chair doing the dentistry, I don't see also what's going on in the clinic. I got my head down. If I'm busy, that's good, right? So he's got that unique view of being able to see where we should go. For example, when we started, we built the clinic with 5 ops. We equipped 3. And it didn't take too long that my husband's like, we need to fill out the last 2 ops. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's been 5-6 months. Why would we do that? Like,
Yeah.
almost like slow down. And he was absolutely right. Because by the time we got the equipment, because I mean, getting a chair from ADEC, I think what at the time was taking over 6-9 months or something. By the time we got the chairs and we got the rooms equipped, we needed them. I would have been late if we went off of what I thought.
Mm.
He was able to see that progress.
Interesting. So he has insight. So we'll talk about that right now in a little bit. So you built this team over the years. How did you approach hiring your employees? What qualities do you look for, and how has your hiring process impacted the overall success of your practice?
Your staff make the clinic. They help with my amount of stress, and they don't see me first. They're calling the front desk. They come in. They're seeing everyone else, seems like, before they see me. That means a lot. Making sure you get A players. Absolutely. That was a concern we had doing a startup was who's gonna want to sign up for this?
Uh-huh.
'Cause it's not just a simple come in and be the hygienist. It's okay, come be the hygienist, and every patient's a new patient,
Mm.
and create the systems. Front desk, they're going to be like, okay, there is no system. So you have to create it. I mean, that was a big thing when we started off with 3 staff members, front desk, hygiene, assistant. And we asked them one very specific question of we're a startup. You are going to be responsible for starting and creating the systems in your career, your kind of area. We were looking for experienced people because as much as I could have developed those systems everywhere, I'm also a newer dentist. I don't know how to run a front desk perfectly. That's not what I've been trained to do. And so we were looking for front desks that had experience who can say, I've seen this work, this doesn't work. And then they can take that knowledge and incorporate it into our clinic. And one of the things we said to the staff, like day one, was either we're going to sink or swim. And we only have ourselves to blame because we're developing this. If we mess this up, it's on us. And luckily, our first 3 employees, they really took that to heart. They had a lot of ownership then in the clinic because I gave them the autonomy to do it. What do we need? Now, even looking back, I would say that's something that they felt ownership in is they had that ability to say, I like this, I don't like this, and create it. Yeah.
Interesting. Heather, do you think it's harder like in LA, right?
It is.
Or other locations? Why do you think that is? Is it because we have more options or they have more options? Just, I don't feel like doing that or.
I would say my advice is very specific for a rural area. I think somebody living in a metro area listening to this is probably going to be like, that's not realistic to me. I would say my advice is going to be successful for the rural area. And even rural areas, we're running low on hygienists in the area, assistants in the area. So we have our own struggles too.
Mhm.
It helped knowing that I was from this area. People know me. I grew up here. My front desk, she cleaned my teeth when I was little. She doesn't want me to tell you that, but so she
Yeah.
knew that she was signing up with me. They knew me. My hygienist, she had worked with my front desk in the past. So that was a good connection of like, hey, no, I think Heather would be good to work with. It was actually my first assistant that she was moving from the city, so Minneapolis, St. Paul area, to rural areas because they had a cabin. We would joke like she's our city girl. She's like, this is completely different dentistry. It's very different than where she was at. She liked the idea of being able to develop her own system. She actually thought, because my husband called her for the interview, that he was the dentist.
Mm.
He was like, I actually didn't think I was going to work for a female dentist. And then I showed up and I'm pregnant because when we started the clinic, I actually just had my second child right before we started the clinic, which is a whole other conversation. She somehow took a chance on me and I got lucky. I can't even say that I got luck on that. And when you have an A team, they attract A players. I think our big thing is having people that can hold conversations and just talk with people, be empathetic.
Yeah.
It goes a long ways. That's what's worked for us.
Although it's a different area, right? Rural, metro area, things like that. Human nature is still kind of the same, right? So when it comes to wanting autonomy, for like lack of a better word, how much slack do you give the leash? And then how much where you're like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have done that. I know you could have, but don't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's some times where we go, maybe not. But we also go, okay, you can't have it all. I can't give them autonomy and then be like, but I'm picky about it. There's some things that I remember at the beginning, we were like, we had to purchase all these random things. I think something was purchased. I was like, I wouldn't have done that. But also, wow, guess what? They all did XYZ. So should I really get picky and down with them because this one item? No, it's not easy. This is like your baby, right? This clinic is, you do all the work and then you start it and you're like, okay, here you go. It's very scary. It's like watching the kid bike for the first time and you're like, yeah, they're going to fall down and they're going to get and you got to trust them. Yeah. I would say we're probably still learning where's that border. But I think explaining to them also your vision. What's your why? You got to know your why. And if you explain it from the beginning of this is what I want, everything kind of falls into place. There's a book that my husband read that he really liked. It was Spider and the Starfish. Have you read this book?
No, I haven't.
So it is creating a business that functions more like a starfish than a spider. So if you cut off the leg of a spider, the spider's going to die. You cut off the leg of a starfish, it's going to regenerate and it can survive. If you create your dental office that you have to be the one to make all the decisions, you created a spider, right? Mm-hmm. Where we can have an issue where something now goes wrong and they kind of know what I'm going to do. I've explained to them my vision, what I'd like, where we're trying to operate more like a starfish. Like if I'm sick, I guess we're stuck. That's totally me. That's the idea of the spider and the starfish.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. So then you mentioned your team knows you. One of them even cleaned your teeth, right? So like they know you. Is there a line where you guys are like, hey, I'm your leader, I'm your boss, or I'm your friend? Or is it just kind of all like, hey, no, we all grew up together. We're all in this together. We're all friends, family kind of a thing?
Well, there's a line in a respectful way. I mean, it's a small town. We definitely try to have a family feel. That's something that we want. Like one of our assistants, she has young kids. The kids come here before school and they sit in the break room. And so we get to see them off to school every day. That family feel, because that's what I would want. I don't just want to check in, check out, and you're with these people. Like that bond, I think that's something that we want. Where's that boundary? There is. You still are going to try to have that line. And I'm always impressed of how well I feel like the staff respects me still with that. Sometimes that you don't want to always be the boss. You want to be the fun one. I always joke as an associate, you're the fun boss. The associate is the fun one. They don't have to make any decisions. And then all of a sudden you're the boss. And you're like, oh, okay. This isn't, you can get the fun part anymore. I would say staff, they always talk about is probably number one stressor. And it is. Because you want your staff to be happy. And we haven't had a staff member leave yet. And I think when that happens, if somebody was to leave on maybe something we did, they don't like working here, whatever it is, that would probably really hurt. I think that would probably be the first kind of like dagger we would experience of what that feels like. And maybe after that, maybe my skin would get kind of a little bit harder about the whole like family feel. I mean, we're 3 years in. I'm still learning a lot. Somebody else will come in and probably say, Heather, you can't be that. You need to make a bigger wall. And I guess I'm still learning on that one.
Yeah, like a bigger gap or something.
Yep.
That's interesting. So then what's been one of the most stressful thing, if you can recall, something happened with your staff or a staff member did, and how did you handle it so it can be peaceful?
Oh, a staff stressor. I can't think of something right now. I'm sure there is. I think somebody had inquired maybe about either, I don't know if it was pay or something. They approached my husband about it and not me. I think that was done appropriately. Like I was able to just be the dentist, do the dentistry side, and my husband's able to do the other side. And I actually appreciate that the staff member actually went to my husband handling the business side and basically told him, like, this isn't something like Heather and I need to have this conversation. So we would keep our professional dental relationship. This is a business conversation about maybe finances or pay. This is with him.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's more.
But that's good. That's good.
As
That
we
you're.
noticed for years, I might have more stories.
I know. No, that's fantastic. So then, when it comes to systems, what is a system in your practice that you consider unique or particularly effective? How has it contributed in the way your practice operates and scales?
In Minnesota here, there's a company that does the OSHA and the X-ray and making sure you do all the checklists, right? So Leanne, and she's from Compliance Solutions. I hired her to help us make our OSHA book. And so I felt like even though we didn't develop that, that was so efficient, especially as a startup when you got all these other things on your plate, to have somebody else come in and say, this is what you need to do to make sure you're covered, you're doing things right, and you're doing things safe for your staff and your patients. I thought that was great. I think it's great for the staff. They made multiple comments. Not every office does this, but we can say we're doing everything, really doing all the checklists. That's great. I would say the other thing that is pretty unique to us that I've heard is we try to do little things to make patients happy or reach out in a little way that people don't expect that the dentist would do. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, Everything is Marketing by Fred Joyle.
Yes.
We love that book.
Yeah.
And so we send out a card if somebody's family member passes away, or if the patient passes away, we send it to their family. It's just a simple card from us, has our picture on it, and says basically, we're thinking of them, sorry for your loss. And we all sign it. It's just a little thing that we do. We also have a local winery. We have wine in our,
Oh, nice.
that we would give out, and coffee from the local coffee shop. That if something goes wrong, maybe you thought the crown was in and for some reason didn't get documented right, and the patient comes in, you're like, we don't have your crown. Or they come in on their birthday or anniversary or something else happened, right? It's their way to just be like, hey, congratulations, you got married. Here's a bottle of wine. For you, it's 12, 13 bucks. On that patient's going to tell like 10 people, guaranteed. Like you paid for that. And we give our staff the ability to do that. So they get to make those choices. Again, it doesn't have to come from me. It's that starfish idea of they see like, hey, guess what? It's their 50th anniversary next week. I'm going to give them a bottle of wine. That just made my staff member, that was happy for them. The patient loves it. They're going to go home and tell 10 people about it. And next time they come in, they're going to be like, hey, I remember that bottle of wine. It was great.
Yeah.
A little thing we did to make them feel special and be different.
I like that. I like that a lot. The bottle of wine and then well, it does also empower the staff, right? They're making their own decisions. It makes them feel good, right? Kind of a thing.
It does. Yeah.
Interesting. I like that. So then your marketing and advertising. First of all, how many new patients are you getting a month right now? You don't mind me asking.
As about 2 months ago, we had to really scale it down because we had been running fill schedule, new patients, everything goes. So we're running 50 plus new patients a month. When we started out, I mean, gosh, we were having months over 100 our first year. That's great. We thought it would die off. It hasn't. These are great problems. Again, if you were in like LA, that's not going to happen. It's different. So again, we are unique here where we have too many patients and I can only work so fast. And now we're actually having to scale back because we're a full clinic in 3 years. We have too many. Who says that? We're very blessed in that way, but we need to almost scale it back so that we can take care of the patients we have.
How do you scale it back?
Well, that's a great question. This has been a really big conversation for us the last couple of months, actually, of asking my past employer, mentor, and everything of how do you scale back? There's only a couple options, right? You can either drop an insurance, limit your patient base, or raise your cost, maybe. We weren't going to raise our cost beyond what we thought was reasonable. We're only in network with Delta Dental and one small insurance for military because my husband's in the military. We just love those patients. So we have one insurance, Delta, and then it's all right, scale back new patients. So we are limiting our new patients back quite a bit so that we can try to keep up. But that's pushing people now as a new patient 6-7 months in the future. And so we don't really know how this is going to look. We're in that weird realm. And I'd love some advice from somebody to tell me, how do you scale back? That's where we're at.
So right now you're accepting how many new patients a month?
I think right now we're down to trying to get to about 6 to 10.
Heather, man, that's how much like you guys are packed. 6 to 10. Wow.
It's a great problem.
Yeah. So then
I guess
marketing
the
and
other option is to
advertising.
grow, right? That's the
Yeah.
other one is get an associate.
Is that the
That's
plan?
so the building we're in, half the building is the dental office. So when we started, actually, we bought the whole building. So we have two other people that rent space from us. We could always finish off the whole building, the other half, and expand. This next big debate is how big do I want to be? What's my goals? If
Mhm.
it's to grow as big as I want, there's things that comes with that: time, stress. An associate brings a lot of positive things: time off, somebody to ask their opinion on for cases and kick those ideas off of each other, making sure you have the right person. And how many dentists are coming to rural Minnesota?
Yeah.
That's another big debate we're in. Yeah.
That would be the ideal result for you is getting associates.
I don't know. There's a debate there. One of my mentors where I worked in Avon there, when we talked about this, where do you see this going, right? And we had talked about we're seeing the clinic grow this fast and we're seeing the, possible future bigger, maybe we'll get an associate. And she's like, don't let basically the cart in front of the horse. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, interesting. She's like, some days I miss the small clinic because her clinic is a 2 dentist practice and they expanded from a 3 op from when she first started. And so she's here at the end of her career just telling me like, bigger isn't always better. Sometimes it's nice having your smaller patient base and your smaller staff. And what if your associate stays and leaves and now you have a 2 dentist practice of patients to take care of in the middle of finding another associate? So she just had that wisdom of growing is great, but you have to understand what that also brings. It was good eyesight. If I had found the person that I felt was going to be a great marriage in that regards, and I felt had my same vision, absolutely. Yeah, that would
Mhm.
be awesome.
No, I like that. Yeah, you always want to question growth. Is it necessary? Why are we doing it right? It's funny you mentioned that. Lately, we've been getting a lot of people who are, they've grown massively, but just as they're like, yeah, I miss the days. I miss the days of like being small and agile and you're lean. You know what I mean? You can do what you
Yes.
want and everything. As opposed to being big, now your problems are so much bigger because you're dealing with more people's lives instead of your patients. Interesting. Interesting you bring that up.
And I wouldn't have thought of that unless somebody told me to scale back. She was also the one that she would say, kind of, what's your goals as a dentist? And I said, well,
Mhm.
I want to place implants in 5 years. I want to do Invisalign. You come out of school and you're like, I want to do all these things. She's like, yeah, well, people still need though the fillings and the crowns and the dentures. And I was like, that's not sexy. You know, that's,
Yeah, yeah.
she's like, it's not the sexy part of dentistry, but it's consistent. It was an interesting view. I don't think I've totally said no to implants yet, but it did have me going, you know what? Right now, I got no space to put implants. I'm too busy. And maybe I'm just going to be the unsexy dentist doing crowns and fillings and dentures and extractions. Right now, I'd be okay with that because I'm
Mhm.
also too busy to add anything on.
I know you're super busy. So then marketing and advertising, how does that look like for you then?
No SEO, no SEO here. But we did when we started. And so I do remember where we were at of how do we advertise? How do we get people to come here? The building we were at is right next to the one stoplight in town. So
So one stoplight.
everyone's got to
Interesting.
slow down right here. So we have a great location. And we paid a lot for the building because we knew great location. That's probably been our biggest reason why people come here. So they see our sign. Oh, I've been driving past and because I work and I see your sign and I give you a try. On our patient information, like that's one of the questions we ask. I just assumed they would know us. No, less people because they know me, more people because they saw our sign.
Oh, okay.
So location, I would say is great. We're a small town. So what is unique to rural Minnesota? We're still functioning mainly on platforms of Facebook, newspaper, local radio. We did all those things. I mean, there's a parade in town. We had our float, we had our sign and things like that. One of the biggest marketing things that really helped us that first year, and we still have done it, is every Christmas, we do a 10 days of Christmas giveaway. So we went to local businesses in our area. We bought a $50 gift certificate to restaurants. Then we had like our Facebook thing of if you like and share or something, right? Whatever it is, this post, you're in the pot to get one of these. And then every day we would post about who won. That gained so much traction. We were actually getting like spam, like somebody copied our dental Facebook page and we're
Oh,
like
yeah.
these people. And we're like, oh, we became too good. That's awesome. So that was a
Yeah.
fun thing just to see this thing explode of people sharing it in our community. Also, other business owners were just happy we were supporting them. And so they were sending people to us, their family members, because it was like that give take. And we were just happy because it was advertising our local area, almost like small business helping small business kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So we did do like an SEO the first 3 months through our website. We used Wonderist. We still have them. I thought they were fabulous. That worked out really well for us. And we love that. Other than that, we get to pick local people we want to give money to. There's always
Yeah.
somebody asking for money. That was surprising to me. You could probably get a letter weekly, 2, 3 week of like, hey, donate to here, donate to here. You can't give money to everyone. And so now we get to give money and help organizations and businesses and schools that we want to. And so that's fun for us. And that's
Mm,
actually more of our advertising than mailers or whatnot. Facebook is a big thing for us. And it's free.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, it's true. So then, what was something for you before you opened up you felt was like a huge, I got to give it a lot of attention. Now that you're years in, you're like, why did we give it that much attention? That was too much. Like, even people on Facebook talk about, like, you got to make sure that this is happening, this is happening. But now you're looking back and you're like, no, we really don't have to.
I remember spending a lot of time of what kind of materials we needed in the clinic. And it was like, honestly, I look back, I'm like, I could have just had my assistant at the time order what she thought. We would have
Yeah.
been fine. But here I am, trying to pick some of those things. And that probably wasn't where I should put out a lot of my time. For some reason, that was a big thing for me. I think it's because I didn't know enough about what kind of impression material do you want. It would just felt like I needed to make all those big decisions when you really just needed something to
Yeah.
get going. You can always change. Like that wasn't as important. Oh, kind of becomes a blur, but not really. I remember just being stressed.
Yeah, at that moment, I feel like everything's like on high alert a lot of the times, right? You're like, oh, we got to get this. We got to make sure this. You don't want to miss any I's or forget
Yeah,
to cross any T's.
it's your baby. You just want to make sure you had everything
Yeah.
correct.
So then throughout this time, Heather, I guess from the moment you decided to open up your own practice till today, what's been some of the biggest setbacks or failures or roadblocks that you've encountered, or
Yeah.
one of the biggest?
Location, especially in rural Minnesota. I didn't want to just rent a location. We really wanted to own
Hmm.
a small enough area that we wanted to have that financial benefit of owning your own building. So we had looked at a lot of properties in our town and tried to think like, okay, maybe here, maybe here. Just nothing really worked. And so it felt like a setback to me because now I'm in an associateship that I'm like, I only have 9 months. That's it. That's all she has for me, right? I need to have
Yeah.
this clinic. And we're also expecting our second kid. So I'm feeling the mom stress, like, I'm going to get this job.
That's true.
And there was a property that we knew we would probably have to either add on to this very small building or demolish it. Like it was too crazy of a thing we'd have to do to it. In my mind at the time, it felt like this is our only available spot. We have to do this. It's this or nothing. It kind of started feeling like we need to.
Mm.
And I remember my husband being like, do you trust me? And I'm like, what? He's like, we need to back away. We put an offer in too, and they denied the offer. And he just said, do you trust me? I said, yeah. He said, we're gonna take a step back. We're gonna say no. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you could just feel like the dream just and he was right. I was forcing it so hard to make sure it was that location. And it wasn't right. The Snap Fitness that was here didn't continue after COVID. And so that's what we had was this big open area of 2,300 square feet, basically open because it was the Snap Fitness. That was my big setback that I remember it probably being like, it'll never happen.
No, because I mean, like you have your heart, your mind, everything set on that one specific location. You get tunnel vision a little bit, right?
You do. If you just keep beating the horse, it's going to work, right? And it's trusting that if you're pushing too hard, it's okay. Something else is going to come around. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Hmm.
And it was better than what
Yeah.
I thought I had to force.
Okay, awesome. So, Heather, these next questions are just so the audience can get to know you a little bit better on a personal level, and they're scenarios. So, one of them is time travel. If you can go back in time and give your starting out self one piece of advice, but it can't be business related, what would it be?
Probably that you kind of need to push yourself outside your comfort level. If you always live within that comfort level, you're kind of going to stay small. You're going to be in that little circle you created, whether it's being a new dentist and you have to try new materials or new techniques. You got to get outside that comfort level, and it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird. Whether it's a startup and you're like, I have to talk to bankers and I have to talk to lawyers and accountants. And I wish I would have just told myself, it's okay. And you got to ask questions. You're going to look stupid. When you do a startup, you're going to ask a lot of questions and you're going to be like, I don't know. And it's fine to just say, I have no idea what I'm doing. Help me. What do you have advice for me? Help me be successful. And asking those questions and being completely vulnerable. People are typically wanting to help you be successful. I guess you're going to find out really quickly if they aren't. You don't want to be working with them anyways. But as a dentist, I would say that was something that I wish I would have had, not business-wise, just dentistry-wise. I remember I didn't do a lot with kids in dental school. Kids almost freaked me out. There was just such a small mouth and they're taking time bomb. And I had to just be like, go get CE. I didn't want to take PEDS CE because it all felt like I just want to avoid it. And you got to get outside your comfort level and get the knowledge to make yourself better. And so PEDS was one that I took a bunch of CE on. Surgical extractions was one that I had to just dive in and find out, how do I become more confident? Because I'm not. Just knowing your weaknesses. And it's okay.
Okay, I like that. Next one is the unlikely mentor. Who in your life has given you the best business advice that was completely unexpected? And what was the advice?
Probably was that interview I had with Dr. Moen in Avon when she just said, you need to start your own practice. And later talking to her and having her say, like, just thinking about the end in mind. I think that was a big thing for me. I didn't expect that she would slow me down and just saying, you need to figure out what's your ideal life, whether it's you want to be with your kids at sporting events. What do you want to do? What's that? And you can create that. I think that was a beautiful way she just said that. I didn't expect her to just be so very easy. It was a very easy statement of what do you want in your life? What's an ideal day for you? What's an ideal week? And you can create that. As a business owner, now you get to be the one to do that.
That's true. I like that. And then finally, if you could invest in one currency that's not monetary, such as kindness or innovation or integrity, which would you choose to enrich your business and why?
Empathy. I think empathy goes a long way. And I don't think you can fake empathy. Patients know if you're being true, if you are actually giving them honest answers. Empathy.
I like that. Yeah. 100%. I feel like you can feel empathy, right? If you're just like trying to rush it, or the patients will know like, oh, they don't feel so true. You never are like, I'm the most empathetic today. You can always add to it a little bit more, a little bit more.
My staff would probably say that I'm very empathetic, where almost they have to be worried that I'm just going to give away dentistry, because I would probably be like, that's okay.
Yeah.
I have patients that come for like second opinions. And honestly, they just didn't know the why. You just explain the why, show them the pictures. This is the cracks. This is why you needed the crown that they said you needed. They're like, oh, that light bulb goes off, and that was all they needed. They just needed somebody to explain to them, understand, and just be empathetic that dentistry costs money and trying to help people. And not every patient's the same.
No, 100%. Heather, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, Prairie Family Dental. We have the website, Facebook. I got an Instagram. That's it.
All righty. Awesome. So that's going to be in the show notes below. And Heather, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you.